Alright, I think we're good. Alright, hello and good evening. Welcome back to Love, Money, Rock and Roll. Am I coming through okay? Sweet, let's just get right back into it. Let's see, I think we started off on another new day. I just remember getting really, really drunk and I hang out with a dude named Ed. Get my drink over here. There we go. Oops. Bumped the microphone. Sorry about that. Early bird catches the worm. Yet another one of those proverbs I doubted the truthfulness of. For one single reason, if I ever were to catch worms in the morning, it only happened thanks to Himitsu. But today I woke up early. It seemed that was forming a habit. My stomach was growling and I was hungrier than ever. Mitsu almost always made breakfast for me, but had I ever cooked for her? Sure, sometimes I'd wake up early and want to eat, but like this, deliberately and purposefully? After tidying myself up, I headed for the stove. I wondered if an English breakfast would be a good choice. It seemed to have all the necessary ingredients. Eggs, bread, and even bacon. Stop making me hungry. I thought there was supposed to be something else. Corn, tomatoes, or beans. It's usually beans. Well, it wasn't that important. I still had tsukemono from yesterday, and I could fill in for other vegetables. I cast a glance at the clock. Mitsu would arrive soon. Eggs sizzled happily in the pan, the yolk like little suns. Dame seemed bright and fair. I opened the garden door wide, letting the fresh air in. I heard the sound of keys clinking in the hall, and soon Mitsu entered the kitchen. "Nico?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "You're already up?" "Yes, and I'm almost done with our breakfast. Take a seat." I pulled up a chair and invited her to sit down. "This is so unexpected." Better late than never." "You didn't have to." "It sounds like you're unhappy about this." She waved her hands and smiled. No, I'm very happy." Did you get... no. Well, actually, maybe, no, and no. I think at the most we're probably working on the first one. "It's really tasty." Mitsu tried the eggs. I mean, it's really hard to ruin eggs. Of course she was exaggerating, but even I couldn't ruin such a basic dish. And for the dessert, she grabbed some of the tsukemono with her chopsticks. "Thanks for that, by the way. It really helped me yesterday." "Glad to hear it, but prevention is the best medicine." "So you're suggesting I drink alcohol regularly to develop an immunity?" "Nico," she pouted. Easy. It was a joke. From now on, you're going to make breakfast for me every morning." "You wish." She laughed sincerely, very cutely. I noticed that I was staring at her too openly. "Fine, but you can do something else." "Like what?" "Clean up." "You wish," I drawled. "Or at least not make such a mess." "I shall consider your proposition." "Do be so kind." Mitsu took my empty plate, but I stopped her. "No, let me do it." "I'll cut you some slack. You already put in too much effort for today." "Well, hypothetically, if I'm going to cook, what will I get in return?" "Oh, ow, my foot." Hang on. Okay, that's better. "We shall see." She smiled slyly. "What would you want?" I could only think of one thing, and was about to say it out loud, when Himitsu accidentally walked into a bag laying on the floor, dropping a plate which fell and broke into pieces. They say that glass breaks for happiness. I haven't heard that one before. I've never heard that before either. It's true. It's better to not go overboard or we'll have nothing to eat from. Nico, it's all because your house, she kicked the bag half up a meter into the air, is a total mess. We were taking our usual route to school that we had walked hundreds or even thousands of times before. And particularly today, it seemed the same as it had been a year ago. Same as always. Catherine's return, the KGB, the Kobayashi Corporation. Would it be the same now or 10 years from now? Probably not one of them, at the very least. What would happen to us in 10 years? If before I had never considered it, now I could quite seriously imagine a life together with Mitsu. Or Taniko. Copy. What are you daydreaming about? How about you? What do you mean about me? She asked, puzzled. I've decided that I could eat your borscht for a while longer. Unless I get tired of it. Mitsu grew embarrassed and turned away. You're always joking. I think I'm pretty good at it. Maybe I should be a comedian. Just not a professional clown, I hope. In the worst sense of the word. Are you sure you're gonna be alright at school? She suddenly changed the subject. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? Well, you haven't been there for a few days. You don't even know what homework they've been giving. Oh, excuse me. Not that I did homework even when I got it. I'll come up with something. Not that any of the teachers would actually be interested. Of course they would expel me, but since I had achieved my bare minimum in terms of attendance and my grades weren't even the worst, it wouldn't be that easy. Besides, this was a private school, meaning that it was sponsored by the parents and students. Or the students' parents. I'm sorry, I read that with parents and students. I know how to read. You know, I'm lazy, not stupid. Well, sometimes I forget that, looking at you. Ouch. We came across Mitsu's classmates who greeted her, then crossed to the other side of the road, whispering enthusiastically and occasionally casting meaningful glances over at us. What's the matter with them? Nothing serious, she said, not showing much interest. Okay, who are you, and where's my Himitsu? I grabbed her by the shoulders and lightly shook her back and forth. Where had her shyness and embarrassment gone? Ninko, stop it! They're discussing you over there. You seem not to care at all. Well, I guess I just don't care anymore. We were approaching the school. Do you want to have lunch together? You've made lunch as well? No way. You can't expect that much of me yet. So you're counting on my bento, aren't you? Can't I? She seemed to think a moment. Oh, I guess you can today. See you later then. Don't sleep during class. First person I noticed when I walked into the classroom was Michael. He tore himself away from one of his ever-present books and gave me a slight nod. It's not like I hadn't respected him before, but after what he'd done yesterday, that respect grew a little greater. So, did you have a good rest? Kyosuke asked snidely once I sat behind my desk. I did. I feel great. If only everyone could have such a carefree attitude toward life. I don't even remember the voice I gave Kyosuke. Doesn't seem hard to me. Yeah, well, you don't give a damn about anything. I couldn't understand if Kyosuke was being serious or joking. Since when have you become a moralist? You know, it doesn't feel great to sit here for half a day and then spend another half day doing homework while somebody is having fun. He said as if someone's making you do it all. Of course they are. Oh, come on. I grinned. Catherine appeared right before the bell and quickly sat behind her desk, paying no attention to me. I said nothing. There was no reason to start a conversation. Classes went as usual, boring and routine. I always found it easier to extract information from books instead of forcing myself to listen to someone. I am the exact opposite. In fact, I'd say schools care more about grades and how useful or practical the knowledge they teach their students is. Because grades are the only measure of the quality of education at the moment. You can say a kid is talented or has potential as much as you'd like. But how can you actually express that potential? Is the kid a 7 out of 10 on the talent scale? We had that managed to split the atom and start building spaceships, but it seemed to me sometimes that the social sciences lagged further and further behind behind the technical ones. Perhaps in the future, teachers will be replaced with soulless robots, precise, faultless, and emotionless. Just like production lines have replaced menial workers. Would that lead to a future where scholastic production lines produce identical parts for society? Parts with no feelings, passion, ambition, creativity, compassion, or morals? Why is my shoulder hurting? During the break, Katya quickly walked out of the classroom, and I headed for lunch with Himitsu. Put the mouse here. We sat down in the yard and on our favorite bench. A classmate asked me to go to karaoke. Do it! Go with her! Karaoke? Sure, go. Might be a good idea. Don't you want to go with me? Yes I do. Yes I do. Me? Don't question it. Just go. She usually didn't invite me to these events and didn't often go herself either. Yeah. Is something wrong? No, nothing. Just... Will Saya be there too? I guess so. Mitsu smiled. Aren't you afraid that we might have a fight? Well, I hope you won't start bullying girls. And we're on unequal grounds. She can bully me. Nobody's bullying you, Nico. Just be prepared, she's gonna hiss you. Oh yeah, every girl sings that song. Even if they can't sing. Alright. If you say so. Actually, what year did that song come out? Was that early 80s? I was walking back to our classroom thinking about Catherine. Why? Why? You don't need to. I wondered what she'd felt about these new circumstances. The excitement of the first few days had faded, and we all knew we needed to get on with our lives. 1980 exactly? Okay. So yeah, it would be pretty popular by this day. First there were emotions, demands, rejection of any compromise, and the inability to think about the consequences. And then came the realization that life went on and everything remained the same. We shouted at each other, broke some dishes, and sat down to have dinner at the 5-square-meter kitchen of a Soviet Khrushchev-era apartment, as we had nowhere else to go. It was a crude analogy for Japan, but Catherine and I had to, if not in the same kitchen, at least spend time in the same school. Something struck my chest from inside. I realized I never thought about what would come next. What would I do, feel if everything remained the same? Watch a group of women, usually white, go to karaoke. When the first one goes, watch the others when she inevitably does the song. Absolutely priceless. Actually, in my experiences, it's usually Disney songs. Classes finally ended, and I ran out of the classroom in anticipation of karaoke. My singing abilities left much to be desired, but at least it would be a change of scenery. Actually, for the group of friends that I hung out with, like family friends and stuff like that, let's see, A Whole New World, obviously, Um, what was the one from Hercules? Go the Distance. Trying to think of other ones. Sometimes Lion King. I'm trying to think of other ones that the girls would usually sing. And of course, I'd be dragged into it because I had the voice that actually sounded more like a Disney prince, as much as I didn't want to. Hellfire. I don't think that Hellfire was in the catalog, nor was Let It Go. At least at that back then. Trying to think what else was in. Cause they didn't have Frozen. They didn't have like Moana or maybe Tangled. I think about the time Tangled would have been the more newer movie. But yeah. Anyways. Oh. Outside, I was met with an unexpected twist. Kagome is standing at my locker. At my locker? What's going on here? Lazy League karaoke night. I feel like that's just gonna end up being me, you and me, Mike. I don't know about everybody else, so they're gonna join in. How did she manage to get there faster than me? We need to talk. I'm in a hurry, actually. It's important. So, what do you want to talk about? Not here. I figured I still had some time. Besides, I was interested in what Kagome wanted to talk about. Lead the way. I do too. I wish they didn't take that out. We went to the roof. You could set up an office here. I smirked, but Kagome got to the point immediately. What's going on? What are you talking about? Stop pretending. I know everything. Know what? This tone right off the bat meant that it was something serious, at least for her. I know that you're connected to Kobayashi Corporation. Me? What the fuck are you talking about? I haven't graduated yet. Kagome clearly wasn't a corporation agent, and she didn't look like she was with the KGB either, but her words sent a shiver down my spine. It took considerable effort to remain outwardly calm. Or your parents were. You watch your words. It really wasn't polite of her, but I shouted so loudly Kagome shuddered and shrunk back. My parents are dead. I'm sorry, but that doesn't change anything. Doesn't change what? Yes, they worked for Kobayashi, so what? Tens of thousands of people do. You know it's not that simple. What isn't that simple? I raised my voice again. Stop pretending. Look, Iwamura, are you alright in the head? Kagome frowned, but she kept sticking to her guns. You're lying. It's written on your face. The only thing written on my face is that I don't understand a thing that you're talking about. She paused. Maybe you really don't know anything. Then this conversation is over. Hey! I called after her. Of course, Iwamura was a real weird girl, but to hear about my parents and the Kobayashi Corporation from her, I could have stopped her and interrogated her about everything, but I felt that'd be too much. After all, we were at school. She'd scream, and then what? They would definitely believe her over me, whatever she came up with. Rapist, be my guest. Serial killer, no problem. Most teachers wouldn't even be surprised. Maybe Kagome knew something or was involved somehow, but she clearly didn't pose any threat herself. Besides, Yusa was waiting for me. It was surprising how for the past couple of days thinking about her caused all my other problems to fade in the background. At first, karaoke felt pretty awkward or even tense. I had no issues with Mitsu's other classmates, at least I thought so. But Saya, at first she wouldn't even look at me, but an enclosed space can work miracles. You either need to kill your enemy or learn to coexist with them. So, after a couple songs, she seemed to come to peace with my presence. I didn't have much fun, though. I could only think about Kagome's words. What did I know about her? Well, absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, she knew about my parents, or Kobayashi. Perhaps she was also a victim? This conclusion sounded more logical than any others, so I decided to stick to it and ask her about it openly at the first opportunity. When we left karaoke, it was already evening. Time passed so quickly. You can say that again. Saya was walking with us while others went in another direction. Do you also live nearby? No, I'm going to the station. Oh, right. It's on the way. Felt a bit awkward around her. After all, my past behavior wasn't exactly up to Japanese standards. But Saya, in turn, wasn't displaying any open hostility toward me. Maybe because Himitsu was around. Singing isn't my thing after all. If only I had my bass. I totally agree with you there, Nikin. About the bass? About your singing? Ouch. Well, it's not like you have the greatest voice either. Never claimed to. Enough, both of you. Mitsu laughed. Look who's talking. Your singing's pretty alright. I'm not even sure whether that was a compliment or an insult. From Nico, it's a compliment. Some girls did indeed sing better than her, but compared to Saya and me, Mitsu sounded like a prima donna. Well, to each their own. Can you really play the bass? Are you really interested? So, is he any good? She turned to Mitsu. Well, say it like it is already. I don't know much about music. My thoughts exactly. Well, she didn't say I'm bad. She didn't say you're good either. So am I bad at it or not? Don't be afraid to upset me. Yeah, tell the truth. Come on, guys. Mitsu begged. Soon we approached the station and bid farewell to Saya. Nico. Mitsu grabbed me by the hand. Aww. Like when we were little. And smiled. I didn't say anything, just squeezed her hand in mine. At the same second, I found myself feeling good, even somehow peaceful. Hand-holding? Scandalous! How rude! Wait, hang on. There we go. Oh, I should update this. I gotta add one more picture of nice. Oh, up in the other corner, a little picture of real Saiba just grinning at me. Maybe I hadn't sorted myself out fully. But at this moment, I wanted to be right here. Mokori. With her. To some extent, I owed a great gratitude to Catherine, to KGB, even Kobayashi Corporation for that. But no, not the corporation. Today has been perfect. Mitsu finally broke the silence. Yeah, it's been nice. I wish we could always have days like this. I sighed. What's the matter? I was thinking that we used to have a lot of days like this. We just never paid them much attention. But we've never gone to karaoke with people. Well, it's not about the karaoke. There's even a proverb. Enough of your proverbs. Anyway, it's true. We need to cherish the moment since we can never know what tomorrow will bring. Especially in my case. Mitsu lowered her head. You mean in terms of your circumstances? Yeah, of course. Has anything new happened? No. It was too soon to tell her about my conversation with Kagome. Nothing about her was clear. Do you still think that we're going to be alright? We've been alright so far, which means we've been acting as we should. But if something happens, will you tell me? Of course. No, promise me. Mitsu exclaimed anxiously. I promise. Bonus points for forgets that quote tone. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that movie. There we go. And don't forget about it. To help you, I need to know everything that happens to you, or happens with you. Makes a promise and immediately dies the next day. There's your hint. Shall I provide daily reports for you to sign everything? Sign every evening? Sounds like a great idea. Speaking of the evening, today went way too quickly, don't you think? No. Although, yeah. Maybe. There's a film I wanted to watch on TV. Oh, Nico, I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Tomorrow my father and I are leaving to visit my grandma for the weekend, so tonight I need to pack everything. For the whole weekend? Yes, she replied sadly. So, all Saturday and Sunday? Yes. So when are you coming back? Monday morning. I see. The thought that Mitsu would leave for 2 entire days made me feel off. Even though she used to spend the entire summer at her grandma's while I was melting in stuffy Tokyo. Well, I had gone with her a couple times, but only for a week. I didn't even know why. Maybe because some of the mysterious Japanese traditions or something. Well, alright. Bring me back some fruits then. I'll bring a full basket. Also, I wouldn't mind a couple of her nicumens. Somebody enlighten me. Nicumens? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I'll ask her to make some just for you. Steamed purple. Oh. Okay, so it's kind of like a siopao. At least that's what we call it in. Hang on, let me look up a picture of it. I got my phone right here. Ah, okay, yeah. It's. I didn't know what it was called in Japan. In the Philippines, we call it siopao. But it's essentially the same thing. Alright, then I don't feel bad about you leaving. Goes to the grandparents for vacation, then the roof of the house gets blown off by a bullet train. No. What are you gonna do? Nothing, I guess. Do you have any suggestions? Well, you can do your homework. Never hurts to improve your grades. I'll think about it, I replied in a serious tone. We approached the house. Mitsu looked cautiously around and kissed me on the lips. Aww. Oh, there you go. Nico didn't do it, but she did it. It was so sudden that I didn't immediately realize what happened, and only when she was a few meters away did I feel blood rushing to my face. Like an 8th grader, damn it. Mitsu's boldness was even more surprising. See you on Monday? Yep, see you. I walked into the yard and saw Kagome sitting on the porch. Uh-oh. It's you again! I exclaimed, and immediately turned around. Luckily, Himitsu had already gone home. We haven't finished. I'd say we never even started, and I don't have any desire to change that. I tried to enter my house, but Kokomi stood stubbornly in my way. I'll tell you everything, but you have to hear me out first. Everything about your parents. I hesitated for a while, glancing around and listening to my surroundings. If this was some plot, the point of it was beyond my understanding. How did you find out where I live? You think it's that difficult? She smirked. I don't know, that's why I'm asking. The school has files on everyone, and I am a class rep, meaning I'm a regular visitor to the teacher's room. Is that even legal? I think I'll report you to Kiyama-sensei. You can report me to the Pope if you want, just hear me out first. Well, fine. Come on then. I opened the door and invited her to enter. Kagome hesitated a moment and then stepped inside. Do you want something to drink? Tea? Sorry, I don't have coffee. I do! Excuse me, boy. I don't have a face cam, so I can't do like the slow turn and smile. Do you live all alone in a house this big? She completely ignored my hospitality. As you can see, that's not very cost efficient. So, what did you want to talk about? I sat opposite her and looked at her intently. Just imagine Wayne's World as a new generation. My father used to work at Kobayashi Corporation. In fact, he used to work on the same project as your parents. This project is classified and I don't really know anything about it. But then they fired him, and my father had to help my grandfather at a restaurant. With such rank and gratitude for such a talented scientist. Kagome said viciously. The details of her family's situation didn't interest me much. So, what then? A few days ago, he was kidnapped by the corporation's people. Why are you so positive they were the corporation's people? Muzzled men in black suits barged into the restaurant in the middle of the day and they took my father away. Who else could they be? Did you have any business trouble? Maybe debts? No. That got Kagome worked up immediately. Our restaurant might be small, but we do honest business. Honesty is relevant in this case. You can be as holy as a hermit and have $1 million in debt. She gave me a dreadful look. What do you know? Hey, this isn't about me at all. You're doing alright, or at least not badly. Kagome finally answered my question properly. Did you try the police? Yes, but they just politely waved at me away. Isn't it obvious that they even had the police in their pocket? Maybe, but sorry, I still don't understand. What does your story have to do with me or my parents? They all used to work on this project together. Maybe they were killed because of it. I didn't need Iwamura to tell me that, but I decided to keep my mouth shut. It was all very weird, sure, but on the other hand, even the secret project had to have more than 2 people working on it. My parents, Kagome's father, Ichinose, however many more. Maybe the corporation was just trying to eliminate everyone involved. Maybe they weren't killed. They died in a car accident, I said uncertainly. Do you really believe that? I'd like to help, but you do know my parents are already dead. So, you know nothing? What could I know? I grinned wearily. Besides, what else do you know except what you've told me already? Kagome bit her lip and clicked her tongue, annoyed. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't think it matters what you believe. So nobody from the corporation came to you? Nobody asked you anything? What about you? Don't repeat the question. Nobody from the corporation. So, from somewhere else. For a moment, I even wanted to tell her everything, maybe just to have another ally. However, thinking about it rationally, I had to admit Kagome wouldn't make a good one. She was too unstable. Not that I knew her that well. No. Something tells me you're hiding something. As people in my country say, when something occurs to you too often, you should cross yourself. Do you really think I'd joke with something that might be related to my parents' death? Would you joke about your father being kidnapped? No, of course not. Sorry. She grew embarrassed and looked away. It's fine. I just really can't tell you anything else. By the way, how do you know about my parents? My father's friend told me everything. Did this friend also work on the project? Your rumor might be useful after all. No, I don't know. He's in danger too, so he didn't tell me much. By the way, the thought had been nagging at me for a while already. What's your father's name? Oh! Akira Shinji, why? Akira Shinji, pretty common name. It's nothing, I just wanted to know since he knew my parents. Does the name mean anything to you? Nothing at all. Of course it did! It was the person Ichinose had mentioned to me. But no matter how entertaining and curious this was, I hadn't learned anything new in the end. Well, yeah, he used to work on this project. Yeah, he was kidnapped. So what? Ichinose, he said he was probably killed already. Oh, that's not good. I looked at Kagome's tense face, and I couldn't find the courage to tell her that. Not just out of concern for my own safety, but also because I couldn't destroy the last hope she had. I'm sure your father will turn up. How could you possibly be sure about that? Fine, I just wanted to cheer you up. You happy now? Kagome stood up. The best thing you could do would be to give me information. So if you learn anything, you let me know right away. Got it? Got it, got it. I saw her to the gate and returned to the kitchen. Hang on, I'm gonna change up my headphones real quick. There we go. That's better. Saw her to the gate and returned to the kitchen. I learned so much about my parents' life and death recently. As hard as it was to acknowledge, it seemed I hadn't known them at all. At least I hadn't known the truth about their job. According to Catherine, they were suspected of espionage, weren't they? Now I couldn't believe that. I clearly remembered how we left the USSR, even if I had only been a child. When you're 7 years old, it's difficult to comprehend what adults feel and think, even to interpret their facial expressions. But a little person always has some sort of intuition. He or she just knows when something isn't right. And I did. I don't think they're alive. I think they're legit dead, because they pretty much died right in front of them. Because I think he was in the car when the accident happened, if I remember correctly. My cold dinner, made from leftovers found in the fridge, seemed even more tasteless eaten alone. Something hurt in my chest, and I shivered as if cold, although it was pretty warm inside. The reason was obvious to me. I was used to Himitsu always being around, and now I could feel how much I missed her. September 19th. do normal people do on the weekends. Go to the countryside, the movies, or the theater, visit amusement parks or bars, meet their friends. For me, depends on the month, season, and what's going on. Usually, I'd go to the movies. Otherwise, I'd just be sleeping. It all seemed distant and impossible to me. Although any of the activities on that list could distract me from my dark thoughts and self-deprecation. I didn't even know what occupied a greater portion of my thoughts, the situation with Kobayashi Corporation or my longing for Himitsu. The unresolved problem with Catherine was also tucked away somewhere in there. I woke up late, feeling pretty alright, or at least physically. The fridge didn't have anything for breakfast. Mitsu usually didn't buy enough groceries to last long term, probably because she didn't want them to spoil, and I wasn't a frequent guest at the store. But that didn't upset me much. I could always drop by the ramen shop. I was about to leave when the phone rang. Hello? Moshi moshi? Hey, Nick! Hey to you too. Not busy? Not that you could be busy with anything. True enough. What'd you want? Mike and I wanted to go to the city center, visit some shops maybe, play at arcades. You want to join? Yeah, sure. I replied without giving it much thought. I didn't really have any other options for spending the Saturday. And to be frank, I was glad he called. Kyosuke, with his silly and inappropriate grin, seemed to beam with positivity and optimism. Under the circumstances, it could seem pretty unpleasant, but now his good mood was in line with the situation. Michael was serious and focused as always. So, how you doing? He was looking up at me right in the eyes, and it made me feel uncomfortable. I'm alright. And how's Himitsu-chan? Went to visit her grandma. So you've been left all alone? Don't pretend like you care. Damn, Nick, you've become so moody. Have I really changed? I asked Michael. Tell me honestly, have I changed at all? He adjusted his glasses with a single precise motion. I wouldn't say so. Come on, Mike. Since Catherine returned, our Nick hasn't been himself. He got my annoying glance. Not that I'm blaming him. His behavior's understandable. If I was in his place. Enough already, Kyosuke. Michael said calmly, and Kyosuke went silent immediately, lowering his head. Why couldn't he do the same when I said it? Alright, what are we gonna do? Well, I have an idea. Rubbed his hands together rather ominously. Hours at the arcade flew by. Video games distracted me from my real problems and allowed me to forget the outside world for a time. I wasn't as good as Kyosuke, but managed to score way higher than Michael in every arcade machine. Which was nothing to be proud of. It was like a healthy athlete winning at the Paralympic Games. The medal might be gold, but you're still an idiot. Jeez. And the arcade didn't even have medals. By the time we walked outside, the sun was already setting. It would be cool if video games were recognized as an official sport. Give it a few decades, Kyosuke. Like soccer? Yeah, then I'd definitely be a champion. I hope I won't live to see the day. I noted phlegmatically. Why? It's also kind of sport. Requires quick reflexes and training. Kyosuke would spend entire days here, and of course he played pretty well. But it seemed to me that I could have easily beaten him if I'd spent as much time playing as he had. More importantly, though, I had no desire to. Alright, let's go and eat already. I had a snack in the arcade, but it was time for a proper dinner. We went to a cafe and ate until my stomach was full. Kyosuke walked off for a phone call, leaving me with Michael. So, have you managed to talk to Catherine? Talk? About what? Sort out your relationship, so to say. It seemed like that was all we had been doing. We don't have a relationship anymore. Is that so? So you feel nothing for her? I looked at Michael closely, trying to figure out what he was getting at, but his face remained emotionless. Why are you asking? It's just if you two are done, I'd like to know about it. Oh. Dude, knock yourself out. Don't tell me you've got your eye on her. Yes, I have been thinking about that, if you don't mind. He replied without a hint of embarrassment. So that's how it was. I wasn't even angry, I was just surprised. Although, to be honest, it felt unpleasant. I doubt there's a person alive who'd like it if his best friend started dating his ex-girlfriend. I wasn't one of those people, at least. What would my answer change? It's important for me to know your opinion. Don't you care about Catherine's? What? I can ask directly. I don't know. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that all the ostensible courtesy and thoughtfulness was, in fact, a disgusting display originating from cowardice rather than concern for a friend. As if by warning me about his intentions, he was trying to exonerate himself for the responsibility for any possible consequences. That's quite a thing to say, bro. But to be honest, I didn't expect that. But really, how did I feel about Catherine now? What would I feel if she started dating Michael? Just a couple days ago, I'd been able to answer that question easily. But now, after growing dangerously close with Himitsu? So, what do you say? I mean, I'm gonna try and be as over Catherine, so I would say it's none of my business. I can't decide for you or Catherine. She has her own life. Indeed, we hadn't been in a relationship for a while, and it was stupid to think she'd be alone until retirement. Michael didn't react in any way, just at least outwardly, simply saying, I got you. What are you going to do now? That's difficult for me to say right away, too. He smiled a little. But I assure you, this will not impact our friendship. Yeah, right. And if you decide you still love her, what's the point if she doesn't love me back? That's another matter. I'd say it's the same one. In that case, we'd become rivals. Except you get a fresh start, you could say. Hey, how you two doing without me? Yosuke returned and diffused the awkward situation. However, the conversation was far from finished. I'm so full. He adjusted his belt and sighed heavily. You should watch your weight. People say obesity will be the disease of the 21st century. Fairy tales. I'm sure they'll invent some machine to pump all the fat out. Almost like liposuction a thing. I don't know, was that like a 90s thing? Yeah, and you'll be the guy to make it break. We all laughed together. Research team was on the case. And yet, I was walking home thinking about Michael's words. Last few days I'd spent with Himitsu made me forget about Catherine. but she hadn't disappeared. In fact, she was still living her life. And so she would continue. She'd fall in love, marry, have children, and all of this would happen without me. For the first time, I wondered whether our paths were going to part forever. Unsurprisingly, I wanted to distract myself. It was first introduced in 1975. Okay. I was just a few blocks away from my favorite bar when I remembered Mitsu's note about the dangers of heavy drinking. It's probably perfected by the mid-80s. Okay, so probably about this time. Wasn't that I felt ashamed for what I hadn't even done yet, but she was objectively right. I wonder what Catherine was feeling right now. She probably wasn't hanging out with friends, if she had any at all. Was she at home, watching TV or reading a book, doing homework or cleaning? How did she perceive loneliness? Did it impact her as strongly as me? Unfortunately, I couldn't go find out. I couldn't just go and ask. Why though? Because Michael has his sights set on her? Ugh. How could I have been so wrong about him? On the other hand, he wasn't guilty of anything. I reached my house and stopped. Old, dark windows, sunken porch that almost looked abandoned. Had I been living here all alone, that would have been true. After all, Mitsu with her regular cleaning, washing, and cooking was responsible for the homely atmosphere of the house. Otherwise, the rare blinking light in the bedroom or kitchen would have terrified the occasional passerby at night, inspiring ghost stories about the place. These thoughts, plus the ones about Catherine, are about to drive me crazy. I wonder if I still had the address of Mitsu's grandmother written down somewhere. I remembered the house and the surroundings pretty well, but I had absolutely no idea where it was. I managed to find her telephone number pretty quickly. It was in my notebook as expected. Luckily, the address was written next to it. I grabbed the receiver and had already dialed the number when I suddenly stopped. Of course I wanted to hear Mitsu's voice, no matter what she was talking about. But the desire to see her in person was even stronger. Obsessive thoughts have always been a problem for me. If something pops into my head suddenly, I can't stop thinking about it, I'm done. No matter what it's about, no matter whether it's about something stupid, drinking, or seeing Himitsu. Of course I knew the idea was stupid. Going to a village hundreds of kilometers from Tokyo at night without even a warning. The problem was that a part of this particular obsessive idea was my desire to surprise her. I wasn't even worried about the fact that it would be a bigger surprise for her father. Well, at least I was going to have some hot Nikumas, not Nikumans. I'm just gonna call him Shopao. So I flipped through the notebook and found the taxi number. There's a good chance that trains weren't going there anymore. It was pretty late. And even if they were, it wouldn't have taken too long. Meanwhile, I needed to leave this instant. Immediately. I phoned for a taxi and they named what I thought was an outrageously high price. But my brain was already flooded with dopamine, and I had enough money. The car came at 9 with change. The driver turned out to be a chatterbox, which lifted my spirits, since it distracted me from my inner voice telling me how this whole thing was the act of a madman. Of course, the best thing I could have done was stay at home and go to sleep. But then I would have spent the entire night thinking about I would have spent the entire night thinking that I wanted to go to Himitsu. Okay. I wanted to. And that was it. Soon I would have to face the consequences of my actions, but I had no desire whatsoever to think about that in advance. I told the taxi driver that I was going to visit my girlfriend, surprise her, mentioning that we'd been together for a long time. In a way, I wasn't even lying to him. He just smirked and gave me the standard tirade on youth and stupidity. I could imagine how he felt and lived, but I definitely couldn't imagine myself sitting behind the wheel 12 hours a day bringing strangers to their destinations where they had some crucial business. Maybe conversations like this with people you only meet once is some sort of a defensive reaction, as opposed to protect against monotony and loneliness. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. In that case, loneliness must be just as personal. When you see famous, successful people on TV, you think they're happy and satisfied with their lives. But you can't even imagine they also suffer from adversity and sorrow, from their own difficulties that don't resemble yours in any way. And it's quite possible that what you consider happiness means nothing to them. I think Jensen and Hemingway had a lot to say on the topic. Did I say that right? Yesenen? Meanwhile, we left Tokyo and the dense city districts giving way to sparse countryside cottages. Autumn felt more prominent here. Woodland was all along the way, dressed in yellow and red. The temperature dropped a few degrees, so I closed the window. Mount Fuji was getting further and further from us, and soon vanished completely beyond the horizon. The sun had already set, and the rain started to drizzle as if unwillingly, drops falling slowly on the windshield. And it's such a long way back, the driver sighed. Do you know if there's a place to stay here? Hot Springs, maybe? There's a little town nearby. It was more like a small village. If memory served, it would only take 10 minutes by foot to reach Mitsu's grandmother's house from there. That's where the taxi driver dropped me off. I bid him a warm goodbye and left to look for a hotel. My watch told me it was midnight. A new day was about to start. The town itself hadn't changed at all, although many years had passed since my last visit. There was nothing surprising about it, though. The long arms of Kobayashi Corporation and those like it were yet to reach out here, yet to build up with shopping malls, movie houses, and stores filled with useless Chinese junk and fill each and every square meter with monstrous apartment buildings instead of traditional Japanese houses. In this case, it probably just wasn't profitable, so the locals were lucky enough to not have their sleep disturbed. The steady, unbreakable rural Japanese lifestyle that had existed for thousands of years was something I couldn't help but respect. This respect grew even stronger when I compared it to what I'd considered long outdated social norms and traditions of urban areas, and really post-industrial society in general. Maybe not all the effects of globalization are positive, but there is definitely something useful to it. I soon remembered the way and confidently headed off in the direction of Mitsu's grandmother's house. Sergei Yesenin, Russian lyrical poet, whose final poem/suicide note was supposedly written in his own blood. Oh, that's morbid. Hope that's not foreshadowing of something. All of the houses looked quite similar, especially in the dark, but following a gut feeling, I managed to find the right one. A copper plate engraved with the word Ito glistened on the moonlight. Not that Ito, Mike. I don't think Mitsu's got a sister named Maki. Mitsu's father's surname. The plot of land wasn't fenced off from its neighbors, and the garden looked neat, not like the thicket in my yard at all. I took a few steps down the road that led to the house, expecting memories to spring into mind, but that didn't happen. Yes, everything seemed familiar to me, but my heart didn't skip a beat when I cast a glance at the rakes and hose, the rickety blinds, the stones neatly buried in the sand in front of the door. Maybe I just hadn't spent much time here before. Suddenly I heard a familiar voice coming from the yard. I couldn't understand a word, but it was clear that the voice belonged to Himitsu's father. Of course, eavesdropping wasn't a polite thing to do, but I was almost physically drawn closer. I think Nico was waxing philosophical about the nature of unhappiness since Hemingway was notoriously depressed, leading to his alcoholism. That tracks. Still, it was amazing that out in these small towns, the Japanese still don't worry about their safety, not even bothering to lock their houses. On the other hand, how would you lock a shoji? With a bolt? The door to the yard was open. I crept up as quietly as I could and looked inside. Unhappy people being drunk. Nope, doesn't happen. Ryunosuke was standing half turned away from me and talking on the phone. Yes. He was clearly worried and perhaps frustrated. Problems at work? I'm telling you, everything is going fine. All according to plan. Yes, no. Anokin is under my surveillance 24 hours a day, I assure you. Anokin? Me then? So what? I have my own life. My daughter has been handling them. Hold up. Am I being played like a damn fiddle? What's going on here? His daughter? Mitsu? Outdoor surveillance isn't even my responsibility. Yes. No. Yes, Anokin has been behaving normally, as always. What? Russians? Of course I saw their agents, but it was to be expected. No, they haven't done anything yet. Our clients? He smirked briefly, emphasizing the word clients. No. Everything's quiet for the time being. Sure. I find it strange too, but we can only observe for now. He went silent for a while. Apparently his mysterious interlocutor was talking. You have no reason to doubt Himitsu. She knows everything about his life, probably even more than he does. And that was the truth. And that was the truth, which hurt me even deeper. Suddenly I noticed large beads of sweat falling to the ground, my heart beating so loudly that Ryunosuke-san would soon hear it. But I kept standing still, trying not to breathe, listening to the conversation. This isn't the first year I've been monitoring the Anokin family, and if I'm allowed to say, it's always easier. No, I don't think so. Yes. Of course there are results. His contacts with the KGB. Listen, it would be an international scandal. We can't just... Another pause. Hasty action may lead to the opposite result. Interlocutor. Person who takes part in a dialogue or conversation. Okay. Listen to me. Yes. I got it. Goodbye. Ryunosuke-san hung up the phone and let out a sigh. I hoped he wasn't about to go outside for a smoke, because I didn't feel like I had the strength to take a single step. Unfortunately, Himitsu's father closed the door and the house soon fell silent. Quickly. I mumbled, sneaking through the garden. Sure, Ryunosuke hadn't noticed me, but I had nothing to be afraid of, really. But I couldn't force myself to stay there a second longer. The further I could be from there, the better. Once I found the road, I broke into a run. I only came to my senses on the street of that little town the taxi dropped me on. I'd been under his surveillance? For how long? Himitsu. As if Kobayashi Corporation, the KGB, Catherine, and her mother weren't enough, now that too? But how is Himitsu connected to all of this? So, Ryunosuke was working for the corporation? Or maybe for Japanese intelligence? He mentioned international scandals. Things like that would concern someone working for the government. Ah, fuck. Probably couldn't have taken it if I hadn't mentioned Himitsu. I'd come because of her. In spite of everything, forgetting about all the social norms and manners. I just wanted to see her, hear her voice, maybe kiss her. Handling her mission? So that was just a mission for her? Since when? Since childhood? No, I couldn't believe that for all this time. All these years, Mitsu had been lying to me in cold blood? It was impossible. Anyone but her. God damn it, is there a single person in my life who doesn't end up wanting me dead? I wearily sunk to the ground, leaning against the wall of a house. What could I do now? How could I live? I'd been holding on to Mitsu as the only normal part of my life. She was the only person who was completely honest with me. Was. These words made the weight on my heart even greater. I bit my lip until it bled. How could I look her in the eyes after that? Her big green eyes that seemed only like they could ever her big green eyes that seemed like they could never have lied to me. Thick fog descended upon the town from the surrounding mountains, and the last lights went off in the windows, and a piercing wind started to blow from the north. I closed my light denim jacket tighter, but it didn't help much. Maybe I could look for a hotel? There had to be one here. But first I needed to go to the railway station. The first train to Tokyo was leaving at 4 in the morning, so I didn't have to wait long. I was starving and wanted to sleep. I got lucky and the compassionate station keeper poured me a cup of tea and gave me a couple onigiri without even asking what I was doing there so late all alone. I'd hoped that he wasn't at least an agent of the Secret Service. It was a stupid idea. Why had I gone at all? But in scolding myself, I came face to face with that old dilemma. What's better, to live a peaceful lie or learn the bitter truth? If I were to try and analyze Mitsu's father's words without any emotion, which naturally I couldn't do, I come to the conclusion that he was just there to observe me. But whoever he was talking to with wasn't satisfied with the results. And what kind of clients did they have? Americans? Catherine? What, was she watching me too? That would easily explain her sudden return. Although if Mitsu had been handling her mission well, being around me at all times, Catherine had chosen a very unorthodox means of surveillance, trying to avoid her subject as much as possible. The first timid, still cold rays of the rising sun started to appear to the east, reminding me that I wasn't stuck in this town forever. But I had nothing good waiting for me in Tokyo either, or anywhere else, and with no one. The train arrived almost empty, and I was the only person to enter it on the station. The town was probably too far from the capital, or was it just too early? With 3 hours until arrival, I closed my eyes and fell asleep at once. I woke up about 2 minutes before reaching my station. When I walked outside, I rubbed my eyes and stretched. Still felt disgusting and feeling more tired than before. I definitely needed a good proper sleep. I barely reached home and tumbled into bed. Questions, answers, Catherine, Her mother, Himitsu, and her father, the corporation, and the KGB. I could deal with all that later. What a day. The whistle of a kettle boiling in the kitchen woke me up. Then I heard Mitsu's voice as she hummed the song. That's how my mornings often began, and there was nothing unusual about this one. Besides, Mitsu said she'd be back on Monday. Even after yesterday, I couldn't force myself to be afraid of her. I put on an old, terribly stretched out t-shirt, pulled on my street jeans, and walked into the kitchen. Nico, why'd you go to sleep in the afternoon? I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 8 in the evening. Oh, your afternoon is someone's morning. Why are you back so early? I was expecting you tomorrow. Were you waiting for me? She perked up, and then realized it looked strange. Dad had some urgent business in Tokyo. Dad, huh? Urgent business? I slowly sat behind the table and looked out into the garden. I really did need to put it in order. On the other hand, winter was coming soon, and all the unwanted plants were going to die anyway. Same as the good ones, though. Why are you so gloomy? Not even sure. Got reasons. I avoided Himitsu's questioning look and started with the food. In the end, I found it hard to look at her in the eye. Thinking about it, she'd basically been interrogating me the other day. Promise to tell me everything, Nico. I've been looking for enemies everywhere I could, and all along my main enemy had been hiding right by my side. Despite that, I didn't want to believe that she was that good an actor. That's why you shouldn't sleep in the afternoon. I went to bed late, or early at that point. And now you're gonna stay up the whole night? In reality, I didn't feel rested at all. I was ready to sleep for another 5 or 6 hours. I won't, or maybe I will. Of course, everybody lies. Especially Catherine. Why did I remember her at this moment? Do not go back to her! I swear to God. On the other hand, Katya never explicitly told untruths. She was, however, a master of lying by omission. And she was very good at justifying her behavior and making herself to be out to be right regardless of the circumstances. I wonder how Mitsu would behave in a similar situation. I went to your village yesterday. What? She stopped cutting vegetables immediately, knife hanging in midair. Oh, not the knife. Oh, she's gonna stab me. You better choose your words carefully, you dumbass. It was at night. You were probably asleep by then. An idiotic smile froze on her face. Nico, what are you saying? I wanted to surprise you. I realized it was inappropriate, but still. A very weird choice of words in the first place. Why inappropriate instead of, say, stupid? A dirty joke can be inappropriate when told at an official event. My visit, meanwhile, was unexpected, but more than appropriate, even if improbable. Then why didn't you drop by? She looked genuinely surprised. Specifically surprised, not frightened. Which was a good thing for sure. Because I accidentally eavesdropped on your father talking on the phone. I deliberately paused and looked her right in the eye, but Himitsu's inscrutable face kept an expression of genuine surprise. It was nice to learn that you guys have been long monitoring the Anakin family, that you've been handling the mission well. You said a lot of interesting stuff in general. Nico. Fortunately, she put the knife away. I'm just telling you what I heard. And for what's going on, you should be the one to explain that. Even if my father did something like that, I don't know. Finally, her lips trembled and Mitsu turned away. She wasn't capable of lying after all. At least, in critical moments. I can't believe that you're involved somehow. My words sounded calm, as if we were discussing school and not the fact that her father had been spying on my family for years. Had been spying on my family. And was now spying on me. So if you tell me you have nothing to do with it, I'll believe you. But Himitsu remained silent. So it's all true? No! She shouted through herself to me and looked at me with pleading eyes. Nico, I'm sorry. It was hard to look at her, hear her crying, and remain composed, pretend that it didn't bother me in the slightest. So is it no or sorry? I needed to know the truth. Mitsu kept crying with her head on my knees. No matter what, at that moment she was sincere. How long? How long have you known? Dad told me just a few days ago. She wiped her tears, stood up, moved to a chair over and sat next to me. That in truth he works for Japanese intelligence. That he's monitoring you and used to monitor your parents. But all this? Mitsu was about to fall to tears again, so I had to grab her by the hand. Only then did she manage to calm down a bit. But he's been doing all this to protect you. He told me that you're in danger no matter what. I shouldn't tell you anything. Because that would only make things worse for everyone. I just wanted to do what's best for us. At least she clearly believed what she was saying. I had no doubts about that. I wasn't going to betray you. Hiding the truth isn't the best way to not betray me. Nico, forgive me. When did it all start? 2-3 days ago, maybe? I'm asking about your father. Since when has he been spying on us? Since we came to Japan? I don't know, but... She paused. But what? That's not all of it? I flung my arms up in the air and sighed heavily. Mitsu virtually shrunk into herself. Alright, don't torment me. Say it. Well, he showed interest in our relationship before, too, and She forced herself to continue. I told him a lot. Nothing important, though, just some daily minor stuff. He isn't my father, after all. But you have to understand, I didn't know anything. I wasn't doing it on purpose. Nico? I remained silent. I just didn't know what to say or how to react to her confession. Deep inside, I probably was ready to believe her, but is remorse always sufficient for redemption? For forgiveness? Is forgiveness that important at all? I wasn't the one to judge Himitsu for her sins, but I had to live with her. Somehow. I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't push her away forever. Nico, say something. How much did you tell him? Everything I knew. But he's only trying to help and protect you. Us. I'd like to believe that. I smirked sadly and stood up. My legs had become terribly numb for some reason, so I had to make a few rounds of the kitchen. I don't blame you for trusting him. Nico. Mitsu kept going on, which started to irritate me. At the moment, I needed something constructive, not her whining. I need to think. She looked at me with hope in her eyes, but immediately realized that I was going to think alone. Alright. See you tomorrow then? Yeah. I replied absent-mindedly. Even my relationship with Catherine is simpler in many respects. Because I could expect anything from her, but there were things I would have never suspected Mitsu of. It wasn't even about whether I could forgive her. What was important was whether I could be sure that she wouldn't pull another trick like this in the future. Besides, forgiveness and meekness are easy to get used to, and then you eventually lose your self-respect and what you thought was unacceptable before it becomes quite hang on. And then eventually you lose your self-respect, and what you thought was unacceptable before becomes quite permissible. Okay. I can't read. God, if only it was someone else in her place. Someone I'd expect such twists from. Catherine? Yes, that would be likely. A phone call woke the house just after it had just slipped into slumber. Take another drink. I jumped up, followed by a myriad of dust particles as they danced in the dim light of the kitchen lamp. Hello? Hi. You're not asleep? It's too early for that. Speak of the devil. What do you want? Just a second ago, I'd been thinking about her, but over the past 2 days, I realized that Catherine in my mind and the one I was talking to now weren't the same person. Shall we meet? Why would we? Do you need a special reason? I guess I do. Well, let's say I miss you. This is a bad time for jokes, Katya. What if I'm not joking? How would you know? Okay, alright. Where? I don't care. Then... Ooh. No, if I take her to the park, that's their spot. I don't want to do that. Let's go to the bar. I'm gonna try and stick with Mitsu. If that can even be possible. Let's meet at the bar. I'm starving. Or maybe I wanted a drink. Not food, after all. I had just eaten breakfast. Okay. See you in an hour. She said, and not waiting for my reply, hung up. Damn it, this is just wonderful. What if I were to tell her everything? About Himitsu, her father, Ichinose? I really needed someone I could trust. Or I just wanted somebody to hear me out, someone to get this off my chest to. And since I wasn't sure if Himitsu could be that person. On the other hand, it was clearly dangerous. I reached the meeting point in 40 minutes, and to my surprise, Catherine had come early as well. We sat behind a table. You're early today. So are you. I don't want to disappoint you, but arriving early is normal. What did you want to talk about? I wanted to say that we should have a fresh start. What do you mean? I was startled and even moved away from the table a bit. It may sound silly, but I've been thinking a lot, and I realized that you're right. After all, we still need to study together. I couldn't remember myself saying anything like that. At least not wording it right. At least not wording it that way. So, you want to remain friends? Catherine smirked. I guess we were never really been friends. Our relationship deepened right away. But we can do everything right this time. By saying right, you're implying it was wrong before? I hope each of us can draw conclusions on that ourselves. In a sense, I was happy to hear it from her, I guess. At least now I'd be able to think less about Catherine. But I definitely had more urgent issues at hand. Even disregarding the gravity of each of them, the situation with my parents' past and my and Himitsu's present was way more important than my feelings for Katya. Because there was a good chance that I would not have a future to sort these feelings out. It's fine by you. I wouldn't make the offer otherwise. Is it fine by you, though? I can live with it. Catherine gave me a piercing look, and for a second I could see a shadow of irritation come across her face. She probably wanted to figure out what I was thinking about. No wonder. I was just way too tired and couldn't be bothered with facial expressions. Well then, she said seriously. Should we shake hands too? Why not? Katya reached out and I shook her hand without hesitation. Well, we have a deal then. By the way, how's Himitsu? Why? I put myself on guard right away. You've become too distrustful. Why do you think that? Because it's obvious. She threw her hands up. I have good reasons to be, don't you think? Yeah? What reasons? Well, I don't know, I replied sarcastically. Some notes, for one. We've already discussed that. Why do you all think that having a discussion changes everything? That words can fix actions? Who is we? Just all of you. In this case, going on like that would drive you mad. You might not believe it, but I'm worried about you too. To some extent, Catherine specified immediately. So my question about Himitsu is quite appropriate. She's okay, doing fine, I replied briefly. I wish that was the case. You could talk to her yourself. For example, tomorrow at school. Will you be there? I will. The conversation seemed to wither away on its own. We seemed to have signed a peace treaty, but had no idea what to do now. I wanted and had an opportunity to take a break from my inner turmoil over her, but the whole conversation felt like some weird formality. Like a military dispatch about a ceasefire. By the time the news reached all the soldiers in the trenches, a dozen would have been torn apart by shrapnel. It was Katya's turn to break the silence. All right, then. How are you doing, by the way? Fine. She smiled, a bit unnaturally, as it seemed to me. That's what you expected to hear, right? I really don't have much to tell, though. Well, I bought a calendar and been crossing the days off with a big red marker. Days left before the end of the school year? Exactly. Does it help? I don't know yet. Silence descended upon us again. Well, I have to go. Yeah. See you. I said as if I were saying goodbye to Kyosuke, not her. It was nearing midnight. That conversation with Catherine had calmed me down a bit. Whatever Miss Winters had on her mind, I doubted she put her own daughter in harm's way. Mrs. Winters. If only by letting her communicate with me. In that regard, the Americans were still ahead of the Japanese. Since when had my life become this ridiculous baseball match with me as the ball being tossed back and forth between opposing teams? The light was on in the windows, and I immediately knew it was Mitsu. She was used to finishing what she started. And if I hadn't forgiven her earlier, I had definitely had to forgive her now. That's what she thought. And that's what mattered to her. Threadbare forgiveness. I don't know if it's because of my upbringing or something else, but I always thought that this behavior was like expecting praise from a shogun, or in our case, expecting clemency. To some extent, this situation wasn't that hopeless. The death penalty couldn't resurrect a killer's victims, but a relationship can be fixed, and trust can be regained. At least in theory. I wasn't sure I was ready for that. Nico, sorry, I'm here. I know you wanted to be alone. On the other hand, while I was deciding on how to live from here on, I could take her keys. Although I had nothing to hide at home, except for some dusty corners, an empty fridge, and an open bottle of whiskey in the cupboard. I would be more surprised if you weren't here. Hey. She was about to get annoyed, but quickly caught herself. I told you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Or wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. So you won't ask me where I was? No, I shouldn't provoke her anymore. Whatever the case, I wasn't going to tell her that I met with Catherine, and if Mitsu didn't ask first, there was no need to bring it up. Didn't make dinner? It's not healthy to eat at night. It's not healthy if you're going to sleep, but you just said I won't be. But it seemed her logic circuits had overloaded. Just steam or smoke coming out of her ears. Alright, relax. That was a joke. I took out a new pack of tea, opened it, and put a teapot on the stove. In fact, I'm glad you came. Really? She asked distrustfully. Now, when you've calmed down a bit, we can talk normally. You have calmed down, haven't you? I asked and looked at Mitsu. She was sitting, fidgeting with a napkin, and seemed to avoid looking at me. What do you want to talk about? About your father. Do I have a more important topic? But, Nico, I don't know anything except what I've told you already. I wasn't going to spy on you. You need to understand that I'm a victim here too. Her excuses were poor and even, although it was hard to acknowledge even to myself, revolting. Of course, Mitsu wasn't a pathological liar, but now she was behaving like a little child who wouldn't even admit her guilt, even caught red-handed trying to take a box of cookies from the cupboard. Let's say I agree that you're not guilty. Will you tell me what you know? But I'm really not. She sighed, apparently realizing what I wanted from her. Think about it yourself. Why would Dad tell me anything else? I don't know. More than that, I couldn't understand how he could drag his own daughter into all of this. Maybe it's more about you than your father. Why didn't you tell me everything right away? Because we would all be worse off. My exhausted psyche couldn't withstand another crying fit. I quickly grabbed the mugs and put one of them in front of her. With chamomile, as you like. Oh, thank you. Mitsu looked surprised. There was no real reason for that, though. I always had a fine selection of teas. Mostly because of her, but I had also bought some for myself. It's not like I did anything weird. No, it's just... Thank you. We were drinking tea slowly, and probably were both happy to keep silent for a while and gather our thoughts. Naturally, I had to forgive her. Otherwise, we'd never get out of this deadlock. I was just concerned that it might give Himitsu a sense of impunity. After all, she had always been a good girl, obeyed her parents, had teachers, respected her elders, was a role model for younger children, lived an almost exemplary life. If it so happened that she was wrong about something, or God forbid, found guilty of anything, it would always hit Mitsu hard. And that's why my forgiveness was subconsciously so important. That was why my forgiveness was so subconsciously important to her. But to me, it was important that it didn't come too easily. Unlike Catherine. Catherine always paid too much attention to what they refer to in English as appearance. At the same time, she couldn't care less whether others perceived her as good or evil, right or wrong, virtuous or deeply vicious. Respect was all that mattered to her, and Terrence are respected as much as prophets. I assumed she didn't think about the reasons, be it worship, fear, or love. In a way, these two girls represented two philosophical opposites to me. Idealism, materialism, altruism, and egoism. Platonic love and friendship. And carnality, sexual desire, even lust. Earth to Nico, Mitsu said timidly. The tea had time to grow a little colder. I can't forgive you. I went silent for a moment, and then continued right away in order to avoid a cheap theatrical pause. Because I wasn't at sup with you in the first place. Really? She raised her huge green eyes at me, and I could see a spark of hope in them. Sure. Just put yourself in my shoes. How would you react? Of course I was surprised. But promise that there will be no secrets between us from now on. I promise, Mitsu said solemnly. Oh, it's pretty late already, and you can tell your father that nothing unusual happened at Enokin's place today. I grinned good-naturedly. I definitely will. Mitsu responded, but clearly didn't intend to leave. I'm not planning to sleep, but that doesn't mean you have to sit up with me. She hesitated, but in the end, stood up. Good night. See you tomorrow. Like her double agent. Good night. I saw her to the door. I hoped that Himitsu believed I had forgiven her. To me, however, this was just the beginning. Fortunately, over the last couple hours, I had managed to calm down and come up with a plan. Without unnecessary hesitation, I grabbed the receiver and dialed the number I had memorized. I didn't get a reply right away. After all, it was past midnight. Good evening. I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I need to know if Ogawa-san is at home. A sleepy voice grumbled. You've got the wrong number. And I began to wait. The telephone bell pierced the silence of my house only a half an hour later. Shino ordered delivery to this address. Sorry, you've got the wrong number. Isn't this? He spelled out my number. He spelled my phone number with one digit off. No, it's... My sincere apologies. Have a good night. I didn't know if petty tricks like this would work on KGB agents or Japanese intelligence, but I soon realized Hinase would be waiting for me at the same spot on the waterfront. And I already knew how to escape this house without attracting any attention. It was time to go to bed then. At this time I felt calmer sneaking through the streets of my district. If Himitsu had done anything right, I had nothing to fear from Japanese intelligence. I hadn't noticed KGB agents following me even once, and I wasn't even sure if they were truly watching me. As for Kobayashi, you could guarantee that the corporation and Japanese Secret Service weren't pursuing the same goal. The last train had left long ago, but luckily taxis were available 24 hours a day. I just needed to dial an easily memorized number. The car came pretty fast, and less than an hour later I found myself on the waterfront. I could see the dim light of a cigarette in the darkness, and a familiar slumping silhouette appeared against the silver moonlight. "Ichinose?" I called fearfully, still afraid of having made a mistake. "Were you expecting someone else?" He came closer and smiled in an excessively friendly manner. "You seem to be in a good mood. Have you been waiting for long?" "Does it matter?" "I guess not." "Did something happen, Nikolai? I hope you're understanding that getting in contact with me over some trifling matter is risky for you in the first place." If only it was a trifle. I sighed. "So, what's it about?" "Junusei, be honest with me. Have you told me the whole truth?" "I simply don't know the whole truth," I replied and immediately lit another cigarette. "But you aren't hiding anything, right?" Perhaps at first I was worried. I definitely was. But now anger took over. I was angry as much as this old man. I was angry as much at this old man as I was people forcing us to be out here now, hiding in the night like criminals. I was angry at the people who took my parents away from me, destroyed my daily life, and turned me into a goddamn schizophrenic. I really want to believe that's not the case. "Tell me what's on your mind already." Because my face flinched involuntarily and tears welled up in my eyes. After all, going through this on my own and sharing my inner turmoil with another person were not the one and the same. It's hard for me to think that you knew about Japanese intelligence and hid it from me. "Japanese intelligence?" He didn't look particularly surprised, but took a half step to the side. "My best friend's father, the girl I've spent my whole life with, her father works for Japanese intelligence. More importantly, he's been spying on my family since we arrived in Japan." "Nikolai, I had no idea." "I really want to believe that you didn't." "Of course. It's obvious that Japanese intelligence is well informed about the project and has been monitoring people involved in it, but I had never thought." "Nikolai, tell me more." "There isn't much to tell. I happened to learn about it by accident. It's just hard to accept that a person who's been your neighbor all your life, a person you trusted, turned out to be someone you should never trust under any circumstance." I smirked sadly. Was I really talking about Ryunosuke? Frankly speaking, you never were particularly close. Rather, I was afraid of him. A strict neighbor and your girlfriend's father is a great cover, as it turns out. What about a childhood friend? Was that a good cover? "Nikolai, this is terrible, I realize, of course, but..." Ichinose glanced around as if gathering his thoughts, rather than checking for any hidden threats. "How much does he know? This isn't just about you, after all." "Well, he definitely hasn't gotten anything from me, only because I didn't know anything myself, at least I didn't a week ago." "But you do now." "What's so criminal about what I know?" He looked at me closely as if he were about to say something, but remained silent. "Ichinose?"
"Nikolai, such a betrayal is certainly terrible, but you do realize that they've been spying on more or less all the important people in the project, right? And most likely for a long time now. The question is how closely they've been watching. To be frank, I had no idea your father was of so much interest to all these intelligence agencies."
"Why?"
"Because we were just regular staff members."
But he was Russian. How could a Russian be allowed to work on such a secret project in the first place? Not that I haven't given it some thought before, but not from the point of view from the Japan's national security. He must have had some knowledge about our local specialists and he must have had some knowledge that our local specialists didn't possess. Like what? Ichinose went silent for a while and seemed to be staring through me, trying to make something out of the gloom of the night. Like the Soviets' understanding of fourth-generation intercontinental ballistic missiles. I didn't know how to respond to that. Nikolai, I'm only telling you this because he sighed heavily. Well, I guess I can't make things any worse by now. Ichinose smiled sadly and continued. Besides, your father wasn't informed of every detail. Unlike Akira Shinji. I interrupted him. Unlike Akira Shinji. By the way, I happen to know his daughter. Little Kagome? I feel sorry for her. What an interesting coincidence. It was that we happened to study at the same school. Well, I wouldn't call her little now. But you two are in similar situations. Except for the fact that her father might still be alive. Let's hope he is. Cold wind blew from the shore. Dark leaden clouds were approaching from us from the east, bringing with them heavy rain and morning fog. It's already late, Nikolai. Ichinose looked at me with somehow sympathetically. Like for what? From another point of view, it might be too early. What does it even matter at time? What does it even matter what time it is? What am I supposed to do now? I can't trust anyone anymore. It's not even so much about Kobayashi Corporation or your damn project. It's about... I didn't finish the sentence because there wasn't much sense into it. Ichinose could only sympathize with me, and even then more for the sake of politeness, as he couldn't fully understand my situation and circumstances. He couldn't put himself in my shoes, and I was disgusted by that sort of routine sympathy. Just like at my parents' funeral. Familiar and unfamiliar people would approach me and give their condolences, and then would give me a firm handshake. The women would wipe their tears with their handkerchiefs or softly pat me on the shoulder. And then everyone just left me alone in that huge, empty house with my grief and sorrow, and only Himitsu was near. No. Things like that couldn't be faked. My question was whether she could combine them with fulfilling her duty to the motherland. I laughed. Ichinose, can you see the state I'm in? I suspect my own childhood friend, practically a sister, of being a spy. I can already imagine her taking the oath and marching with a gun over her shoulder. It's over. The music here is a little bit. I was kind of like, It's kind of grooving to it a little bit there. I can't keep on living pretending nothing happened. Living like normal. I hadn't even told Ichinose about the conversation with Irina. Oh yeah, forgot about her. Something was stopping me from doing it after all. It wasn't him that the KGB threatened. Even though we were being spied on before, at least I didn't know. So now, what happens now? I wish I could help you, Ichinose said heavily. But, in any case, you should worry about yourself first, not about your friend. It's easy to say that. Indeed, during the last 24 hours, Mitsu had been of more concern to me than my own safety. And if you don't give them a reason, they won't have one. He smiled, took a few steps back. You should return home before sunrise to avoid raising suspicion. You're right, I guess. We bid each other farewell, and I walked to the nearest telephone box to call a taxi. Had to wait a while. Wasn't in the center of Tokyo, after all, so by the time the car arrived, I was chilled to the bone. The sun began to rise behind the window, but my thoughts about my conversation with the Chinose kept me from falling asleep. Ballistic missiles? Was it that serious? Really, the words just sounded menacing. Missiles, bridges, what did it matter to me? It had been clear for a while that he hadn't been making toys there. I wonder if Himitsu was in danger. After all, everyone knows what they did to useless soldiers in ancient Japan. I don't know where this plot's going. Circadian rhythms and the internal clock are powerful things. Powerful. Yes, suffering succotash. What's wrong with my speech right now? No matter how much I loved to sleep, unless I was hungover, I'd usually wake up at more or less the same time anyway. Even if I'd gone to bed early in the morning. Of course, I could have buried myself in my bed and kept on sleeping, but Himitsu would soon arrive, which meant I needed to get up anyway. On the other hand, I clearly had sleep issues. But where was Himitsu? I reluctantly got up and walked to the kitchen, but there was no one there. I doubt she'd be playing hide and seek with me. I hope that nothing happened to her. When you fall asleep anxious, you have disturbing dreams and spent the whole night in anticipation of the morning, just to open your eyes and immediately remember all your worries. Still, I really wanted Himitsu nearby. Just to sit together, eat breakfast with, just have a cute chat about nothing, wait until she was done with washing dishes, and then go to school. Perhaps she was busy with something? After all, she had her own life, didn't she? I was worried, but tried to wave my thoughts away. Just a week ago. What am I saying? 2 days ago. I wouldn't have placed any importance on it. Whether she did come or didn't, neither option would be surprising. I had no desire to make breakfast and wasn't particularly hungry anyway. So I needed to prepare for school. Partly because I'd see Himitsu there today. I would, right? Not that I wasn't getting used to school without her. But it felt different from when I knew in advance that Himitsu wouldn't be there when I didn't want to see her. Hundreds of irrelevant details that I would never notice otherwise jumped to my attention. The piles of rotting leaves here and there, the rubbish outside the stores, decayed water pipes, the weird stench coming out of an alley. When Himitsu was around, I was usually occupied by a conversation with her. When I was alone, my own thoughts took over. But now I was overtaken by an oppressive anxiety, a condition where your perception is painfully sharp, and all sentences are working 110%. Walked into the classroom right before the bell, but that didn't stop Kyosuke from bombarding me with questions. Well, hello there. How was your weekend? Worse than yours, I'm sure. You want to bet? I, for one, didn't live across from Mitsu-chan. Speaking of Himitsu, has she dropped by? I tried to sound as disinterested as I could just to avoid any extra questions from him. No, I haven't seen her today. Why? Nothing. Didn't you see her over the weekend? I did. I saw her yesterday. So why? He wouldn't let up. You want to know everything, don't you? My pudgy friend clearly wanted to ask something else, but the bell saved me from further interrogation. Even in better times, I found it difficult to focus on lessons, and now I couldn't think about them at all. Catherine came to school but didn't give any indication that our relationship had changed, that we were friends now. No doubt those were all empty words, a non-aggression pact in the absence of a peace treaty. I wasn't inclined to diplomacy and pointless formalities by nature, so this whole thing of trying to play polite with Katya made me feel doubly disgusted. On the other hand, it was easier that way. During the break, I unthinkingly headed for Himitsu's class. Nobody was surprised to see me. I approached Saya straight away. After all, we talked almost normally after karaoke. Hi, is Himitsu? She went out somewhere. Well, at least she was alive. Wait. Did I really think that something had happened to her? Didn't you come to school together? Her face immediately expressed curiosity. No, I replied briefly. I had no desire to lie or come up with excuses now. Should I tell her that you dropped by? No need, we'll find each other anyway. I appreciated her effort to be polite and smiled at her. See you. Even Saya is behaving relatively strangely. In order to calm down somewhat and collect my thoughts, I went to the roof. That was the only place in school where I could have some time alone. But you won't, because that bitch Kagome was up there. The only thing is that I didn't consider was that the roof had already been booked by Kagome. Called it! She was standing at the rail, looking out into the distance. I indicated my presence, coming closer. She reluctantly looked askew in my direction and turned to observing the weekday afternoon in Tokyo. Her indifference even hurt me a bit. Not going to interrogate me? Why bother? Good, because I have nothing to tell you. I paused, waiting for her reaction, but Kagome kept on ignoring me. Nothing at all. You'd think that Iwamura would leave right away, but she kept standing there as if she hadn't even noticed my presence. I think it had become considerably colder over the last week, and here on the roof a cold, bone-chilling wind was blowing. It was the first time this year that I'd felt winter coming. Not the romance of golden autumn with its red and yellow days, but November's cold dampness that would strip bark off trees and freeze the earth to the roots. The jackets of our school uniform were warm enough, but I had to think about taking my winter clothes out of the wardrobe. Excuse me. My house was incomparably bigger than the old apartment we had back in the Soviet Union, so I had enough space for storing things. Japanese people probably don't even know what entressols are. A necessary part of a Soviet dwelling. You have to enlighten me on that. Anything can be stored in them, from books to toys, from winter clothes to car parts, from our grandfather's typewriter to the Zinger sewing machine that used to belong, I think, to my grandmother. Besides, they clearly didn't obey the laws of physics and hid more stuff than behind their squeaky doors than their actual sizes allowed for. So long, Kagome said eventually, and I was left alone. Yeah, all the best to you too. The door to the roof slammed again. Had she forgotten something? However, when I turned around, I saw Himitsu. Nico, Saya told me you were looking for me. She looked normal. Is that what I would have said? This is what I would have said if it wasn't Himitsu. Happiness or sadness were normal for her, but not this sort of detached attitude. Which, as it seemed to me, was her way of expressing being upset with me. And I specifically asked her not to tell you about that. Why? Because, she and I don't have the best relationship. An entresol is a middle floor. Like a mezzanine. Are you upset with something? I thought you'd drop by in the morning, I replied straightforwardly. Sorry, I had something to do. I was even late for school. Mitsu looked away, and I couldn't understand whether she was deceiving me or just feeling guilty. But I'm glad you came today. What else could I do? After yesterday's... No, I mean... She panicked. I already told you I'm not upset with you. But it doesn't feel like you mean it. Because if I were you, I'd be upset. Mitsu came closer and stood next to me. I saw that senpai when I was walking here. She looked unhappy. What'd you talk about? Kagome Yorimura? Oh, so she's Kagome to you already? Mitsu smirked playfully. Are you jealous? You bet. She's the last person you should be jealous of, you see. Yorimura doesn't really like the company of other people. She left as soon as she saw me. That was actually true. You two have something in common then. Is that a hint? Not at all. Now everything seemed normal. We were talking, joking, Mitsu was laughing, but I could feel some sort of awkwardness and tension between us. I was sure she could feel it too. By the way, sorry I haven't had time to make a bento today. No worries, although I haven't even had breakfast. Hey, Nico, are you doing this on purpose? Doing what? Acting like a child. Nope, fine. I'll drop by the cafeteria with Kyosuke. He definitely wouldn't mind. That's the spirit. Alright, let's go. The bell's about to ring. Alright. We walked down the stairs and I was about to go back to the classroom. Nico, I'm going to be busy after school, Mitsu said as if apologizing. Got it then. See you tonight? See you tonight. Tonight. You. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She smiled, bidding me farewell. I was sitting in the classroom thinking about Himitsu. I want my name to be Spaghetti. About the way she was behaving after I learned the truth about her father. About the way she should have been behaving, in my opinion. Except I wasn't even sure what I wanted. There was one thing I knew. I was fed up with both her excuses and pleas for forgiveness. If I were to really think about it, what was she guilty of? Her father asking her to keep an eye on me? Of the fact that out of the goodness of her heart and naivety? Naivete? No, that can't be naivete. She had been telling him everything about her life, including us? Me? Of not going, telling me as soon as she received that request? I think it's just misspelled. Okay. It was probably the latter. The only thing that she was responsible for directly. Children shouldn't pay for their parents' sins. I knew that as well as anyone. Classes finished pretty quickly, or at least it felt like they did. Even faster than usual, and I wasn't constantly glancing at the clock, counting the minutes, being occupied with my thoughts. However, there was still a lot of time before the evening. I slowly picked up my bag, went downstairs, changed my shoes, and walked outside where Michael approached me. You want to take a walk? All right. We walked out the school gates and headed for my home, although it was clearly out of Michael's way. That meant he wanted to talk about something that wasn't meant to be heard by anyone else. Go ahead, don't keep me waiting. Keeping up the same pace, Michael said. What have you decided about Catherine? What about her? Nick, I'm serious. Well, so am I. I think I said everything clearly last time. Then I didn't understand you. That's unfortunate. And still, I stopped and sighed heavily. To be frank, the situation with Mitsu is much more important to me now. But then why couldn't I give him a straight answer? Look, Misha, you can have my Katya, so you may live and love in harmony. Look, I'm grateful for your honesty, but my opinion doesn't matter here. It's important to me. In that case, I can only repeat what I told you earlier. It's none of my business. But trying to deny the obvious, you're letting me know how you really feel. I am not. It was starting to drive me mad. Look, I'm not trying to deny anything. Since when did you become a psychologist? If you really need Catherine, go and tell her yourself. She'd appreciate the courage, I guarantee that. Perhaps I will. Yeah, would you please? Would you kindly? I said sarcastically and walked away. However, Michael kept following me. Your house is in the other direction? I just wanted to do everything right. I know I shouldn't try and cut in front of you. The victor is always right. But I felt as if I were pushing him toward Catherine. Even if I didn't want that, that's how my words sounded. You know what? Do whatever you want. Seriously, I don't care. But either way, the result depends on neither you nor me. And I don't even know, or want to imagine what's going on inside her head. Besides, I can see that you really have a crush on her. I've never seen you so anxious. I snickered. I think you can understand how I feel. I could before. What changed then? What changed? Everything did. It's quite logical that after many years of living together, some people would begin to wonder how they even managed to fall in love with the other person in the first place. Catherine and I hadn't been married, but the analogy was still appropriate. Okay. I won't bother you any longer. He reached out. I shook his hand a bit too firmly, and then watched him for some time as he walked away. A train station appeared from behind the corner. I suddenly felt extremely depressed by the thought that I had to sit in the house all alone until the evening, just waiting for Himitsu, pretending that everything was all right. And then I would have dinner with a fake smile on my face, speak meaningless words into the air, expecting equally meaningless answers. After hesitating a minute, I walked confidently towards the station. Where are you going? Many people like to pointlessly ride trains. If you look closer, you'll notice that every one of them has their own reason why. Yet this unique railway romance is the same for everybody. The feeling of an endless road, fellow riders you know nothing about, the absence of purpose, and more importantly, the absence of the need for one, new landscapes, new cities with old houses where different people live. I was more fond of walking, sometimes in unfamiliar places, but to be in those places you need to reach them first. It's not always possible to do so on foot, as your immediate surroundings have been thoroughly explored already. Nevertheless, this time I got off a familiar stop, that merchant district on the waterfront near the port. Why there exactly? I guess because this place had given me some hope. This was where I had met Ichinose, who knew at least something about the mysteries of my past and the dangers of the present. Was I really hoping to find the answers to the questions about my future amongst the tiny stores and fish smell? Merchants of all kinds were happily heading toward to and fro on the causeway, while others were soliciting customers to enter their shops. Right in the middle of the road, children were playing with a ball, paying no attention to the shouts and threats of the local old ladies. The cacophony of ship sirens and the roar of turbines could be heard coming from the port. Perhaps that was exactly the reason why I came here. To get a taste of a life that was totally unfamiliar to me. Fill my lungs with salty sea air, feel the sting of the cold winter's wind. To be among people without being part of a crowd, to observe their daily lives. It seemed to me that few people will find this interesting. Why would you want to watch others' boring lives when you've had enough problems of your own? Was that woman selling fish to a celebrity? Was that woman selling fish as what? I'm going to say it how I said before. Or was that hunched old man pushing an empty trolley a famous athlete? It was unlikely that any of these children would become legendary football players. I knew all that, yet I seemed to envy their simple pleasures and, in a way, more peaceful lives. Yeah, I could hardly picture myself waking up at first light every day to pick up another batch of these fresh fish at the port to sell later. Carry a dozen kilograms back and forth and handle some other undoubtedly important things until evening. But I was somehow confident that none of them were experiencing any of my problems. The love, the sparring, and this fascinating introspection. And I was envious of them, with an admiring, rather than hateful envy, but it didn't help me feel any better. What a coincidence! I didn't expect to see you here. Somebody called out to me as I sat on a bench. There was something wrong with the voice, although it sounded familiar. Right, it spoke Russian. Oh no! Oh no. Why is she here? After a moment, Irina Mostovaya appeared from out of the crowd. I doubt this is a coincidence, although I have to admit I am surprised. There was no fear. We were in a public place, and Irina seemed to have come just to talk. Surprised I'm talking to you like this in the middle of the day? Well, yeah, sure. Don't worry, nobody has been following you. She sat down next to me and calmly looked around. Except for me. On the other hand, she could know that I had met with Chinose here, which wouldn't be the best state of affairs. Well, then you must be doing a better job than the corporation. You must be asking yourself, how much do we know by now, right? Well, we are aware of the fact that you went to the village to see Ito Ryunosuke's parents and returned suspiciously early. You didn't even stop by for tea. She smirked, but her eyes remained cold and emotionless, piercing. It seemed that she saw no more of a human in me than Dr. Mengele? I am unfamiliar with that, somebody enlighten me. If you know everything already, what's this conversation for? At least it seemed that she wasn't aware of my meetings with Chinose. We have a business offer for you. One that wouldn't be able to reject. It's always up to you, but you need to consider the possible consequences. So we're asking you to collect as much information about Ito as possible. Documents, papers, any valuable data in any form. Perhaps you might overhear something. In return, we'll ensure your protection and if needed, can even take you to the USSR. Sorry, but I'm not signing up to be a spy. Nikolai, you've been in the game ever since you came to Japan with your parents. Doesn't matter if you wanted it or not, you know those saying, there are no former Chekists. But I'm not even a former. We can give you some time to think about our offer. Why? To choose between a firing squad and a hanging? I grinned sadly. Why the fatalism? Because. I gritted my teeth and frowned. I could just strangle her right there and now, go to Japanese prison, and be there safe from all these bloody spies and counter spies. In return, I'd like some answers. Ask. Why do you even think I might be able to find anything at all? I doubt Ryunosuke keeps important documents where I could see them. That's why you're going to find out. What exactly should I look for? Any information that might seem interesting. If I could tell you more, I would, but unfortunately, Nikolai, I don't know any details. I get it. You lose nothing by risking me. Do you think it would be so easy for him to get rid of you after all these years? Which brings me to my second question. You must know that he has a daughter. We've known each other for a lifetime. Is Himitsu somehow involved in all this? The first time during the whole conversation, Irina's expression grew serious. We don't know anything about that. But you can't exclude the possibility. With matters as serious as this, I can't exclude the possibility that even Ido's cat might be involved. How'd she even know that they had a cat? Are you sure this is an appropriate time for jokes? I'm not joking, Nikolai. So what have you decided? What have I decided? If I were to agree, I'd be doing the same thing Himitsu had done to me. I guess it would be the best to tell her everything as soon as possible. However, by doing so, I would drag her even deeper into all this. I would be subjecting her to real danger. At the moment, Himitsu was mostly just her father's tool, but if I agreed to the offer, she might also become an interest to the KGB. But on the other hand, if I were to find something, it would be the first time I have my hands on something valuable. My importance in the eyes of the KGB and Japanese intelligence would rise dramatically. It's probably too early to say that I could try changing the rules in my favor, but in the end, I could not ensure not only my safety, but also Himitsu's. I'm ready to try, but I can't guarantee any results. I hope you realize that. Of course. Irina's lips stretched to a smile so fake that it made me shudder. What's important is that you do your best. But if it doesn't work out, let's not think about the worst in advance. I wanted to say that wasn't an answer, but I stopped myself. Would whatever it was that it might hear make me feel better? That's worded weirdly. I don't know if I read that right. Besides, I was foolish to expect she'd tell the truth. We'll kill you if you don't manage. What, like that? No. Your words aren't exactly encouraging. I just want you to understand how serious the situation is. I do. Better than anyone. Attaboy. See you in a week. Same place, same time. She stood up, gave me another fake smile as a farewell, and disappeared into the crowd. Yeah, today's walk sure turned out to be productive. Alright, we'll go ahead and stop here. We'll pick this up again, I think, next Monday. Was pushing it pretty hard, but at least we made some progress. I actually think I'm getting close to the end. I don't know how much further, but at the very least I should be able to finish it by next week. But yeah, that'll be it for tonight. Tomorrow will be yeah, it's true, you never know. Tomorrow will be the pushed finale for Metroid Prime. If it does go beyond my usual 2.5 hour mark, I'm sorry, but yeah, I want to try and finish it tomorrow night. And then that way, when Friday comes around, we'll be doing Resident Evil 4. So that'll be the plan for the rest of the week. Hope you guys enjoyed more of Let's Play, or rather Let's Read, I guess. Love, Money, Rock and Roll. The links down below. The first one will take you to the Lazy League Discord. There you'll be able to find the rest of us, such as Oh Hey Mike K, Batgwen, Gumdolph, along with many others in our circle, such as Rainarchy, Warwick Zero, Shadow Knight, 98 Tough Love, C Plus Content, and many others in our circle of friends. Come hang out with us, come be lazy with us. A lot of fun and crazy stuff that goes on. Some shit posting, a lot of D&D stuff, memes and all that, all crazy things. And then we've got some other events that goes on, usually within the Discord, like playing Terraria, or doing some trivia, or watching anime or movies. The second link will take you to the sister site for this channel. Excuse me. There you can be able to find more info on other upcoming streams that I have planned, as well as my archive, although I still need to update that. But if you got any questions, comments, or concerns that you would like me to know about, or any suggestions that you might have for me for future Let's Plays or Retro Nights, head on over to the contact page and shoot them out to me over there. Also, scroll down below, or off to the side, depending which platform you're watching from, to catch many other streamers not connected or affiliated with the Lazy League that I personally like to watch and follow. Check them all out whenever you can. They're all great. And again, thank you for joining me tonight for the second session of Love, Money, and Rock and Roll for the week. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow for the finale of Metroid Prime Remastered. Until then, take care, love and hype. Life is good. Good night, everybody.